In this episode of the Lead Machine Growth Show, Behdad Jamshidi reveals critical insights into matchmaking process, helping you understand how to avoid the pitfalls to access marketing costs and determine the right time and the right partners to marketing partners to partner with. Join us as we delve into an enlightening conversation with Behdad Jamshidi, leveraging his extensive marketing, engineering, and strategy background to empower you with the knowledge needed to choose a marketing partner that truly complements your business journey. So stay tuned and learn how to pick better marketing partners and what pitfalls to watch out for.
This episode of the Lead Machine Growth Show is brought to you by Lead Machine, the step-by-step, tech-easy system for getting leads online. Are you struggling to get leads from your lead magnet? Are you tired of seeing low conversion rates and losing potential customers? It's time to revive your lead magnet and start attracting more leads. Download our free report, 10 Deadly Lead Magnet Mistakes That Are Costing You Leads, and learn how to create a high-converting lead magnet that engages your audience and drives conversions. Don't let common mistakes hold you back any longer. Revive your lead magnet today and download your free report at www.getleadmachine.com/deadly. Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyan, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to the Lead Machine. Joe, it's early.
It's all good.
I'll have to edit that out. Maybe it might be fun. Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, your host, Lead Machine coach, and founder of the Lead Machine Mastermind. I'm dedicating to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. So if you're just starting out or you want to take your business to the next level, let's get this conversation started and turn your dreams into reality. Behdad Jamshidi, I'm going to call him B, started CJAM marketing after realizing that most business owners don't know how to evaluate the value of a marketing agency or assess their own needs, which is typically very common. Since every business is different, not only in their needs, but where they are at in their growth process, it isn't a one-size-fits-all. In the past 5 years, B has met with and assessed 788 plus and counting, I'm sure, marketing agencies and vetted them down to a lean 100 preferred partners across all marketing niches. After pairing hundreds of businesses with the right partners, he's found his skill set lies in the matchmaking process, which is really interesting. Featured in MarketWatch, Bloomberg, National Post, and Financial Post, B's unique marketing background in engineering, consulting, and leadership and sales strategy has allowed him to serve as the conduit between business owners and the marketing teams that they need. So B, hey, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me on the show, Paul.
So the matchmaking process, how do you know when you should hire an agency and for your marketing? It seems like a daunting task, and you kind of, it's kind of a scary thing, kind of unknown thing, especially if you're starting out or if you're at that plateau where you said, gosh, I need some help, I need some expertise. Should I hire in-house? Should I outsource? Where's that intersection?
Yeah, that's a great question to start off with. Usually if a business is growing, let's say you're starting from zero and you start making some revenue, you start getting to a point where you're making enough money that you can bring on some resources. And sometimes the resources initially don't start out as marketing agencies. Yeah. It might be that you started running a social media channel, or you've done some SEO, or you've gotten some ads running, but you've gotten to the point where you just don't have the time or mental space to handle those things. And so typically you don't start off with just an agency. You might start off with like a freelancer or a contractor or someone you can bring on to give you a little bit more time. Right. I think once you really start hitting that kind of like 500K type revenue range, you start looking for where an agency starts making a little bit more sense, because they'll have multiple different resources. You can pass multiple things off to them, and they'll have the teams that kind of run with them, rather than you having to pull together a team to do it. Because it's very hard to pull a team together and then also have to deal with like people leaving and staying, the level of work they're doing. Because as a business owner, like, you want to be focused on the vision, where you're going, and move the biggest needle things first. So when you got a lot of things that you can just execute on, that's when you start looking for a marketing agency, and you have some revenue in the business that you can continuously pay them. So you don't have to like keep jumping from one to the other, because you're not making ends meet, for example.
Yeah, and when you're starting out, probably the first thing you're going to do is hire an admin assistants to get things done, and then they start doing social media, and they start getting involved. And the more complex it is, the less you should be doing as an entrepreneur. You shouldn't be doing all those I'll call them $10 an hour kind of things. You should be working on the $100 an hour things, and of course adjust for whatever the current market is. But what are 3 things businesses should look out for when hiring a marketing partner?
Yeah, this is a great question. There's a lot of things to watch out for, but you can just start at the highest level stuff, right? So when you're talking to like a marketing agency, understand why they got into it. Like, most people don't even ask this question. Like, why are you running an agency? How did you get into it? It gives you so much insight into why that agency is around and what they might actually be good at. And then the other aspect is asking them, like, if you were to choose out of all the services you have, what are the top 2 things that you're really good at? Like, what would those top 2 things be? And then you start getting a little bit more understanding of like their core type services that they're really good at. And then if you're talking to like a founder, and you're going to be working with the team, make sure that you ask like, hey, do you mind if I meet the team and see kind of what they think about my business and how inspired they are? Because you'll get a big tell of just how the employees are excited of working for that agency. Are they excited about what they're doing? Because ultimately that's going to affect your business as well. You want people working on your business that are excited to do what they're doing. And so those would be like some of the top 3 things I would look at when you're vetting an agency.
Yeah, and one of the things that I always like to consider, because I run into this with growing companies that I've worked with over the past 40 years, is that as they grow, their culture may change, and it's hard to keep that together. Some people are doing an awesome job of keeping things together. How do you know that my values and my morals and my moral choices and things are going to be served when using a marketing agency? For instance, there's white hat and there's black hat, and there's things that can damage your reputation in an instant. If you don't know better, you can go down a slippery slope. So
Yeah,
how do you ensure that you've got that? And of course,
that's a
that
great
that
question.
interview is a good starting point, right?
Yeah, and I would say even just looking at the pricing, right? Like, if it's too cheap to be, like, if it's too good to be true, it likely is.
Uh-huh.
So you hear a lot of businesses where they get kind of stuck, right? They're trying to find how to keep costs down. They're outsourcing, and so when they're outsourcing, they're thinking, okay, well, if I pay $500 or $1,000 for SEO, it's good. But the things that they're doing is going to affect your site in the long term. There's no way, even at outsourcing like costs, you can't do things at that level, with that price and do it well. And so
Yeah.
also, as a business owner, understanding that like if you're getting into marketing, there's certain thresholds that you need to invest in to move the needle. Otherwise, it's just you're too early to invest in it.
Yeah, I've worked with companies who've hired marketing agencies, and the one thing that we found with one of them, we hired a local digital marketing agency to create a website for us and an inbound marketing strategy, and we've never done any inbound. This company hadn't, and we really weren't writing and doing, and we brought in a marketing coordinator, so we had someone on staff who could learn the company and the culture and everything. But one thing that we ran into is when they were writing for us, they didn't understand our market,
Yeah.
and then we actually built the chops into that clients into their mix. They learned how to write. They learned how to write for SEO, and then we were done with them, and then we knew that we wanted to go to the next level, and we knew that SEO was super important for the kind of business that they had, and we hired the Neil Patel agency, one of their smaller groups, because they're worldwide. We found out the same thing. we found the same thing, that they couldn't write as good as we could. So there needs to be, I think, that you have to have some sort of a team that can coordinate your voice with the marketing agency. Have you found that to be true?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You have to have someone internally that's being able to explain kind of like the business side to the agency and bridge that gap. If you don't have that resource, like it's really, really difficult. So if you're a smaller business, typically that's you as a founder. Like you need to be
Yeah.
watching over things, giving the insights, because the agency doesn't know, right? Like they don't understand your business better than you do. But what they do understand is how to market. And so if you give them the tools and you give them the information, they'll be able to take that. Like for example, I gave one copywriter 9 pages of notes around my business so that he can write me one landing page, right?
Mhm.
I paid him because I didn't want to have to think about how do I take 9 pages of ideas and thoughts and how my business is into one page. That's what I paid him for. But I didn't pay him to like take that out of me, right? Like I knew that I had to give him that information. And so it's important to know that as a business. And you also hit on another point as you hired like a higher level agency. Even some of those higher level agencies aren't very good. And you might also be too early for them, or they're just overpriced for what they are because you're almost buying like a brand name, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Always being like super careful around that too, because I've seen businesses get stuck into contracts that are longer term, that are outside of their price range, and it's literally drowning the business. And they can't get out of it unless there's like legal aspects into it. So be super, super careful in signing contracts with agencies. You have to really know and trust the agency you're about to hire if you're doing something like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think that some agencies shy away from pay for performance. So you want this client in particular, we'll talk about them for a minute. They have maybe 350,000 worth of new sales from their web. And the idea is to double their lead flow and their deal flow, so they get to 600, let's say 650,000 annually. And that's the whole reason behind the 2-year inbound marketing project that they've got. And they just finished with SEO, and now they're going into paid and SEO and email marketing to come. That's another year-long project. And but a lot of times the agency isn't really thinking about, they want to, if their model is to get a percentage of your ad spend, and not deal flow or whatever that is, doubling the lead flows. If they lose sight of that, you got to keep holding them accountable to that number. And if you don't know how to measure it, you have to have them help you measure it. Isn't that true?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And sometimes you can't even trust them to measure it. You will typically bring in like an outside consultant. Like what you hit on makes a lot of sense because yeah, an agency would be paid per, the revenue spent on Google or Facebook, but there should be KPIs in place to say you're not allowed to spend more unless we're hitting these KPIs, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it might just be wasting money and not being as efficient as possible. And so usually you don't you need either a fractional CMO or a consultant from the outside to help kind of guide that process. And then you'll have like your marketing director run with it and making sure that the KPIs are being hit. So you need a little bit of strategic guidance there. And what we're talking about here also is like when you start getting into higher ad spends, right? In the beginning, you're going to have to test, do things, but as you're getting to higher ad spends, like probably your customer is, that's where it becomes really important to spend a little bit more money on the consulting side to make sure you're getting what your money's worth.
Yeah, and one of this client in particular, I'm using this because it's a perfect, because most of my clients are doing a lot of their marketing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And or they have a VA helping them with social media, so they haven't really scaled to the point where a marketing agency makes sense. So the thing is that's unique about this business, or probably a common thing, is that they don't do e-commerce. They do custom things, just for lack of or for I don't want to be too transparent about them, but they do custom things, and so they want to talk to people, and then they walk them through the custom design and build process, right?
Yeah.
And so there is really no, other than when they key an order into their accounting system, they say it came from the web and it's new. It's a new sale. It's not a reorder. So that's the differentiation. And that's really all they're tracking. So you mentioned KPIs. What are some of the things that you might recommend for someone who didn't really have a good set of metrics to measure the performance? What would be some real key things that they should have?
Yeah, I mean, like it's pretty much like cost per acquisition. Like if you're working on the lead gen, like how much does it cost to bring in a new customer? And you have to also account like your own conversion. Like, so if you bring 10 customers in, how many are you converting? And then using that to kind of guide the KPI metrics, so that you're not going, negative when it comes to like profits. And then ecom has a whole bunch of other set of KPIs that they use. Like I'm not an expert in those areas. Like usually I have a professional CMO go in and set those up. But yeah, it just comes down to like the cost per sale. Are your KPIs set up so that you're still making a profit? Or if you're not making a profit, that's part of your like loss leader on the front end, because you'll get people into your email list and then you can sell them, and the lifetime value will make you money down the road. And so it's really just like getting an understanding of your numbers, your cost per acquisition or your cost per sale, and then knowing your profit margins and aligning your KPIs to what you're spending ads on. And a lot of people will look at ads and go, like, a lot of ads will fail. But then at some point, like certain ones will hit. And when those ones hit, that's when you double down. Like really, it might be, we tried these 5 different ad sets and they didn't work. But the 6th one, oh, this is hitting our metrics. And so we will scale this to the point where we can scale it to, because at some point it's not going to work on the scale. And then you have to find another one. And so I think a lot of businesses think that when they're spending money on ads, it's just going to be easy money back. There's a lot of testing that goes into it. So you have to be mentally prepared to lose some money before you really hit something that you can make the money back on.
Yeah, and in this particular client, they're smart in that they have an 88+% reorder rate.
Wow.
So they have annual events that they service. So they have a really great, and they've been in business for 40 years. So this is really new for them, this whole digital marketing. But they know their lifetime value. I mean, they've got some customers who've been there for 22 years.
Wow.
and longer, and so which is great. And so they have a whole department set up for like 5 reorder salespeople, and that's all they do. And so they keep that ball rolling down the road. So they have an idea of what their lifetime value. So lifetime value is a really important metric when you're paying money for ads, because like you said, that first acquisition could cost you. You could maybe break in or lose money on that first one, but in year number 2, you're going to start making profits, and you're going to, if they're 5, 6, 7 years in, and that's one thing you want to, as a business owner, you want to make sure that there is a repeatable thing that you can buy, they can buy more things from you and keep them in your business for longer, because that will help you on the front end of spending money on ads, right?
Absolutely. Like you're talking about like offer and retention at the end of the day, right? So most people will have something they can sell up front and nothing to sell afterwards. And it's like, well, yeah, it's gonna be really difficult to continue running ads and running marketing if you don't have other things that you can build up that lifetime value for. A lot of the times you have to actually look at your offer and your business model and see, can I tweak this in a way that it starts making more sense for me to be able to spend more ads than my competitor because my business model is better. And therefore that's what allows you to take over different markets. And so what I see a lot of businesses do is when they're running ads, they'll be like, oh, well, the ads are not returning the same way it did 2 years ago. Yeah, they won't, because they're always going to get more expensive. They're always moving towards efficiency. And so you have to also be shifting and changing your model to make sure that you can continue spending more money on ads and other avenues and channels in marketing. So yeah, it sounds like your customer has an amazing business model.
They do.
Really well.
Yeah, and we mentioned email, and so one of the things that I've learned over time and been in this game for a long time, and I'm sure you have too, is that building an email list while you're paying for ads is super, super hypercritical. And I think, and you know this better than I do because you do this stuff all the time, but that email marketing is a source of traffic.
Yeah.
So once you got them in your email list, you've acquired them, you can now offer them things that cost you literally nothing.
Yep.
Because you're in control of your email list. And so having an agency or a VA who knows email marketing and sets this up in advance so that once you get a lead, you can say, oh, you didn't buy that thing. Well, here's something else that we could offer you, and keep them coming back because you've already spent for the initial acquisition. So you don't have to pay for them twice, is what my point is. And
Yeah,
so is that one
you're right on the money.
that
Yeah.
one of the things that you should be looking for to make sure that they know how to do email marketing?
Not the so if you're looking for someone to do email marketing, you'll look for them. But what like you hit on such a good point. I wish I started my email list a lot earlier. Like if there was one mistake I made in my business, I didn't start my email list early enough.
Yeah.
Now I'm focusing a lot on my email list. If you're looking for an email marketing partner to help run that, it depends on what size of business you're at, right? And how big your email list is and all those different things. If you're starting in the beginning, just start simple. Just send out an email a week or an email every 2 weeks, whatever you can do, whatever cadence makes sense for you. I started at 1 email a month. Now I'm almost about 5 emails a month. Like 1 email to my like agency network, and then I have about 4 that go out to my customers. And I basically at this point, I've actually hired someone that interviews me for an hour. I talk about what happened. We set up 2 months worth of emails. They fix all the transcriptions, someone edits, and I only spend an hour on my email to send out 8 emails now, but it's all my thinking and all my thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Because now I'm just trying to be like, how do I become more efficient at running all these different marketing channels? And so I'm at the point where I can spend the money to get my time back and kind of go from there. If you're looking for a really good email marketing partner, I'm actually building a really good like vetted how to vet a solid email marketing partner, but there's a lot of questions you want to ask. And just at a high level, look at how they think about email strategy, how they think about breaking up the list in terms of how to segment your audience, how they do any A/B testing, and then ask for examples of like work that they've done. Like what kind of flows have they set up? What kind of campaigns have they set up? And what kind of like metrics are they getting? Like what are the open rates? What are the response rates? What are their click-through rates? They have all this data. And so you'll be able to see how strong an email marketing partner is just through that by itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, way back at the beginning of this question, you wish you had started your email list earlier. And I think everyone could say that. And they don't realize that the followers on Facebook and their YouTube subscribers and their TikTokers and their LinkedIn, you don't own any of that. That doesn't belong to you. And you can't reach them all whenever you want. You can't just broadcast to them. Now, some platforms allow you to, you have to build a group, but still, this just happened right now. You can't broadcast or you can't post as a third-party app into Facebook groups any longer. Facebook groups is huge, but people are going, wow, I can't reach my people anymore. Because they neglected to build an email list. So that should be central. You should be always, Jeff Walker, the product launch formula guy, said he's always building a list no matter what, and they're segmented based on their interests.
100%.
So yeah, super important. So what marketing channels do you think are the best channels to select for businesses? I know that we just mentioned social media. There's lots of different channels, and all these different channels, social media, email, they're just different media. You've got newspapers, you've got ads, you got, display ads. There's lots of things to consider.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard question to answer because it really just depends on the business and the resources the business has to do things, right? I think at a fundamental level, every business needs to have a solid website that's super understandable. Like people need to be able to understand who you are and what you do. And then I think the email list is the other aspect, right? Like if people come into your website, you need to be capturing them into email. Like those are like the two that I think need to be done at some level. And then when we start talking top of funnel stuff, so social media, SEO, ads, influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, these are all top of funnel type stuff where you're bringing awareness to what you do. And so ultimately, you're going to be trying to drive all that top of funnel traffic to your website or your product or to your email list, because now you're moving into the middle and bottom funnel. So as long as you've established a middle and bottom funnel, the top of funnel really just depends on the type of business you have and the resources you have to use. And so any channel will work as long as you figure out how to use it or bring in the right partners on how to use it.
Right. And I think just any channel will work. Once you do find a channel that will work, and an ad that brings in traffic, that's something that we mentioned earlier, is that that you should pay attention to that and scale it until it can't scale anymore, and see if there's ways to turn that into, instead of just one ad, many ads that are doing the same thing in that channel. Because what that tells you is that there are people there who are listening to your message, that your message resonates with.
Absolutely. And
Right.
as you're growing that channel and you're scaling that channel, be aware that at some point that channel is going to scale to a certain point where it can't scale anymore. And so before you get there, start testing other channels out, because a lot of businesses, especially during COVID and the e-com space, for example, people just went, oh, Google and Facebook ads like printing money. So everyone just threw money and built their resources up. And then all of a sudden, boom, iOS 14 hit, and oh, we're not scaling the same way anymore. But no one had reinvested into SEO, into influencer marketing, to any of these other channels. And so now they're trying to figure it out from the ground up. And we all know how long marketing takes. Like in the beginning of the call, you said, oh, we have a marketing plan that's going to be a year or 2 years. That's how long marketing takes to do. And so if you're churning on a channel, it's not going to give you results in 2 or 3 months. Those are like really unicorn cases that people talk about. Marketing takes years. And at some point you hit that flywheel. And so you need to hit enough of those top of funnel channels so that you're not reliant on one. It's all about diversity, right?
Yeah, and so, and just mentioning that, you need to have it if you're going to hire a partner, or if you're just building your own team, uh, you need to be able to learn how to do that, or have someone who has that expertise that knows that, okay, we've got to have a multi-channel approach. One of my former business partners, he calls that communication layering.
Mm-hmm.
He calls it layering, but basically you can't put all your eggs in one basket is what we're talking about here.
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. And something that most people won't know when they're going into this marketing agency world and landscape. When I survey my customers before they found me, they would go through 3 to 5 different marketing agencies. Like they would hire, ramp them up, work with them for 3 to 6 months, and then end up not working out and then hiring again. And it took them 3 to 5 tries before they found one partner that they liked. And most businesses need 2 to 3 different partners. So if you can just imagine how much time that wastes, right? Every single time, it could be a year to 3 years of your time wasted. Yeah, you're moving forward in the marketing, you're learning something new every single time, but it's just such a waste of time, because your competitors, if they hit that partner the first time, they're going to scale well faster than you trying to find the right people to help you grow. So it's really important to have at least vetted partners that are much better than what you would typically get on average.
Yeah, and you see that, and you might not have noticed, but Burger King, the fast food restaurant.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, they keep hiring and firing agencies because you can tell by their marketing. Remember that creepy Burger King guy, the with the crown and everything. Yeah, that's good. Ronald McDonald is still around. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
Burger
it's
King
true.
keeps firing their agencies because they haven't found the right message, and they haven't been able to sustain it.
Yeah.
So they keep going like this, I think.
Yeah, especially in large organizations, it's a bit strange when you're hiring agencies. So imagine you have a large organization and you have a bunch of marketing directors and managers, right? Where is their network for finding agencies? Right? They don't have it. Like they don't have a network. And so they go Google and try to find people, or meet the first person at a conference and they try to hire someone. Like when you don't have the network, it's really hard to find good ones. And the other thing with like the larger like enterprise customers, like say you're in that kind of position and you have to choose between a partner that is brand named but likely not a very good agency versus someone smaller that might actually do like way better work.
Yeah.
But you just can't put your name on the line to be like, oh, I hired the outside of the box agency. Your job's on the line at that point, because if things don't go well, it's like, well, I paid the most money for the best partner and they didn't succeed, it's not my fault, right?
Yeah.
Versus paid less money for an agency that actually did much better, but if they had a chance of failing, then I'm likely going to be in trouble and fired. And so that's what I think ends up happening at that enterprise level, is people really don't want to make a mistake. And so they kind of like pass that off by just spending more money and hiring the higher brand.
Yeah, and in fact, I've been in IT for many years, and they used to say no one gets fired for hiring IBM.
Yeah.
But I think it's different now. I think the tables have turned, and you absolutely could, because of that reason, because they don't do it as well as other. The bigger the organization, the dumber they are, and the harder they are to move. They're not agile. If they are, it's really a really rare company. That
Very
it
rare.
is. It is.
Very, very, very rare.
Yeah, and we hired Neil Patel because of his thought leadership. And
Yeah.
we originally we went straight to that and we went, oh, that's way too expensive. So we had to go to one of their smaller business units, and they aren't as adept or as thought leadership as we had hoped. But they are really good because we're getting results. That
Yeah.
client is getting results. So
That's
that's
great.
really cool. So what else? So you mentioned what you do is you help people make sense out of all this, and you've got some preferred partners. And so how did you get into that? And I kind of understand how you got into it, but tell us how you got to that point. And 788 is a
Yeah.
specific number. That's a lot of work to vet people, but you learned a lot of stuff along the way.
Yes, I learned a lot. Well, I'm at 802 now, so I finally broke the 800. I just haven't put a
Yeah,
message out on that yet. But yeah, so I mean, originally, as I mentioned, like I come from an engineering background, a business consulting background, and so I used to work with a lot of mid-sized companies, talking to C-level executives, IT, understanding their businesses, and building out roadmaps. Like
yeah,
that's where a lot of my business consulting, sales, leadership, technology experience came from. But on the marketing side, I started building out websites, doing Google Ads and SEO myself for small businesses. I really didn't enjoy doing 80-hour websites on the weekend. Like it wasn't really fun, and I got paid very well as an engineer, so I didn't need to do that on the side. But when I started like working with other partners in the marketing space, I started realizing most marketing agencies and partners don't understand business, and most business people don't understand marketing. And so there's just a big gap. And I
yeah,
thought that very foolishly at the time that I could fill the gap by finding, 10 agencies that do really good work. I'll talk to businesses, see what they actually need, and then basically build the roadmap for them with which agencies to use. And as I got into it, I started really realizing, oh, most agencies are really good at 1 to 3 things. And you need to piece together a bunch of different things for a business to succeed. As the business grows, the agencies also need to change. And I was like, man, this is a very complicated space for anyone to navigate without a network, much less someone that like myself who has a big network to do. And so I just kind of just put my head down and just kept meeting people and meeting people. And my whole goal is to just make an insanely strong network that a business comes to me and they have where they're like, we need these 6 or 7 things done. And I'm like, here's the 4 to 5 partners that will get you these 6 or 7 things done. Imagine how hard it would be for a business to find, like you're trying to get these things done and want to find 4 or 5 agencies on the first try to get certain projects finished. It's impossible. Like literally it's
yeah.
impossible. For me, it's hard, but I can still do it because I've talked to so many people. I know how to piece a lot of things together. So I'll get things right like above 80, 90% of the time, whereas a business won't be able to do that by themselves ever, unless they had a really wide network. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah.
And the more I do it, the more I get better at it. It's like, and it just feels good, that you can like move businesses forward really, really fast. I had a recent customer who said, Behdad, if you didn't make those 2 intros to me, I wouldn't have sold my business for $1.3 million more than what I sold it for. It's like, that's a cool feeling.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is really important because smaller businesses who are starting out, uh, they have to be really, they really can't afford a lot of mistakes. They
No.
really can't afford, they're bootstrapping. They can't afford all those iterations through trial and error. They really need to hit it out of the park. And so hiring a coach to help you with that, hiring someone like you to help them through that makes a lot of sense because there is no time to fail. There's so much risk for starting out a company and making those mistakes. Of course, making mistakes is a good thing because you learn from them, and hopefully you are learning from your mistakes. But that makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a part. I mean, the mistakes are part of the process, but if you can make less of them, it's always good.
Yeah,
And especially when you're starting out, like there's that I call it the value-based space of agencies is really, really hard to navigate because like when you're playing in that value space, the agencies themselves can't hire the type of talent that they need to hire to move your business forward. And so a lot of like what I try to do with smaller businesses is just really set expectations and educate. Like, here's what you need to be expecting, and here's how you need to think about this so that they're prepared mentally for the long-term game because the short-term game rarely works in the small business space.
yeah. And so, what should a small business owner do to prepare to ramp their marketing up?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is have a marketing budget. And being comfortable of spending that budget without making money back initially. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of people think like, oh, if I put money in, I should get money right away. No, some of this is a flywheel effect. And so knowing which channels you choose and having budget set aside where you're like, I'm comfortable spending this every single month on marketing, regardless of what the channels are, and being comfortable with that. I think that's one of the healthiest ways of going about marketing. And that's how I go about my own marketing. So I'm giving advice based on how I do it.
Yeah.
And I started very small initially, $500 a month where I would hire a VA to do some social media stuff and then ramped up. So now I'm spending about $8,000 to $9,000 a month on my own marketing. Right. And that would be one of the key things that I would mention. And then the other thing is like, just build relationships with your agency. Like when you have a solid relationship with an agency, a lot of businesses will just like find an agency, jump from one to another and jump from one to another. But when you build a relationship with an agency that you like, that's 85% of the way there, they will do more for you than just jumping to another business or another agency. And so if you have that right partner and they're almost there, like work with them. It becomes a relationship at that point. And I have some relationships that I've had for 2 or 3 years now, where I ask for something that's like outside of the box and they'll do it without being charged more because they want to see my business succeed and they know that I'm loyal to them as well, right?
Yeah.
Just some advice that I think all businesses should just kind of have in mind.
Yeah, and that's really really important to know or to have that mindset that there's going to be wins and there's going to be loses, and that's what you're trying to find. And either you're going to find that on your own when you're starting out, but eventually you're gonna need to have some more help. But that knowing that okay, we're going to have a loss here in the beginning, but knowing those metrics, like I mentioned earlier, we talked about the lifetime value, knowing that, okay, I'm going to keep this customer for 3, 4, 5 years. And so, and my average sale is $1,000 or whatever it's going to be. So I could spend up to $1,000. I could lose $1,000 on getting a customer or $100 or $10, depending on what your transaction size is. Knowing that is super important, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing to add on to there is like, even if you brought in a customer at $1,000 and it cost you $1,000 to, service them and you've done a good job at it, there's referrals that come in too, right? So there's like all these aspects that people don't really consider. It's like, okay, well, if I brought in 10 customers and I spent 10,000 and I made 10,000, but now out of those 10, I know I'm going to get 3 referrals and I don't have to spend money on those referrals.
Yeah.
Now it becomes like that flywheel and that rolling effect, right?
Right.
So try to think as big picture as possible and try to be in the game for as long as possible. One other tip I would give is when you are smaller, pay for the consultant's time, pay for an hour, pay for 2 hours, because if they're going to teach you stuff that took them 5 years to learn, and you're going to get that knowledge up front. Sometimes when I'm working with smaller customers, I'm like, look, you're too early for marketing, but I'll go through my 1 hour session. I'll show you how to build out an entire like content machine. And that took me 2.5 years to do, and I'll do it for a 1 hour rate. And like those are the more valuable things. And that's what I paid for initially as well.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you mentioned referrals, and we talked about earlier on, we said, once you have an email list, you can remarket to them. So that's free traffic. That's free. Referrals is the same thing. You should really be intentional about your referrals. One customer I work with, they have a lot of referrals, but they really don't track them. They really don't. They just know that they get them. They track the fact that it came from a customer, it's a referral, but they really don't have a formal program to say thank you, or by the way, you introduced me to Jack. This is where we're at with that. Yeah. So there's not that relationship around the referral, so you can get more. And it's not like always asking. It's just like it's a relationship. It's a building of a relationship. And I think you should be business owners should be real like I said, intentional about that, because it doesn't cost you anymore. You just build that into your process, and then you don't have to spend any dollars to get that customer.
That's 100% it. That referral, like I need to get better around the referral. I get a lot of referrals. First off, like I get referrals from marketing agencies, fractional CMOs, other business owners. Like my business is built a lot around referrals. I actually have a referral model where I give a percentage back to anyone who refers me a customer as like a thank you, right? That's just part of like BD, right? Like that's a part of having a new customer. And it's also a reminder every single month of like, hey, thanks for sending me the customer. It edges them to remind, oh, like maybe I should keep sending B more customers because one, my customer seems to be happy. They've been with them for 2 years, and I get a small thing back. And there's other ways of being intentional where you can literally build out a one pager and send it to your like most favorite customers and literally say, hey, do you mind sharing this one pager with 3 other business owners that you think like value my service? But I've actually built out the one pager. I haven't sent it out because I'm already busy enough. But that's like there's referral model programs that you can literally just build around it versus just expecting referrals to come in. You can actually do some work to make it easier for those referrals to come in.
Yeah. And I don't like to call them referrals. I like to call them, and I learned this from my friend Tony Brubleski. He calls them introductions. And my friend Nancy Jutton, she calls them warm introductions.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Where you say the warm introduction is, and we're kind of off topic here, but it's relevant because we're talking about growing businesses. Is hey, I'd like you to meet B. B does an amazing job at A, B, C, and D, and I think he can really help you get some more traction with your marketing plans.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Nancy is a strategic partner. She's got a huge network of people. She's heart-centered. She's really good at what she does. I think that I can't wait to see what the two of you create.
Yeah. Yeah.
I credit her for credit Nancy for teaching me that. And it's just a great practice. And it sheds great light on you too. And so each of those people are going to say, wow, I'm going to refer people to Paul because he knows what he's doing, you know. So
I'm definitely using that moving forward. I'm going to use it as a introduction versus referral. I actually like that way more because at the end of the day, I like introductions way more because I just want to build a relationship at the end of the day. It's not about business initially. So I'll tell business, I'm like, introduce me to another business owner because I just actually like to meet people. I don't know if I'll be able to help him or if he ever needs anything from me or I need anything from him. It doesn't matter. But having that relationship is extremely important.
Yeah. And when people ask you, well, yeah, can you refer me? Can I have a referral? Your mind goes blank. I have no idea. But you say, hey, who do you play racquetball with? I know that you do a lot of golfing. Who are your golfing buddies? Are they in business too? Well, you know, what do they do?
Yeah.
Or even being more intentional is saying, you know that you know so and so, and he does the same thing you do. You think there's an opportunity for you to introduce me that might help. So now you know who their network is, and so it just makes it easy to move into your conversations and said, hey, can you introduce me to Jim? I know that he's doing this and that, and I think that what we've done for you might really work well for him. And then have them say, hey, Jim, this is Paul. Do a warm introduction. You know, give them some ammo so that they can actually do a good job of doing an introduction.
That's a really good advice.
Yeah, yeah. I credit that to Tony Rubleski, who's a good friend of mine. So B, as we wrap up with your final words, what are 3 things that our listeners can do today to put these ideas into action?
Yeah, I mean, number one, we talked about kind of like what can people do. I think content is going to be king moving forward. And so just start creating some content. It doesn't need to be good. It could be written. It could be video. It could be whatever that makes you happy about your business. But start creating content because there's different ways that you can repurpose that later when you have like a whole content machine running. So that'd be one thing I'd look at. If you're currently working with partners today, go and validate your current marketing partners and find out if they're good. If you need, get audits either from other agencies or other consultants to see, like I've seen some customers be taken advantage of, especially when it comes to pricing and what they're getting for that pricing. So just double check that you're not being taken advantage of on the marketing side, and audits are pretty easy to get. And then I'm building personally, and you'll be talking about this later, but I'm building a ton of resources because I want to help businesses be able to ask the right questions when they're hiring agencies. Those resources will likely be out in the next month or so on the website. And you can use those resources, whether you're going to be vetting an agency from a high level to a website agency, to a Google Ads agency, to an email agency, so that you can make sure you're asking the right questions and getting enough information that you're hiring the right partners. And so those would be kind of the 3 tips.
Cool. And then you mentioned the free resources. You can get those at www.cjammarketing. So CJ, it's cjammarketing.com. Sorry, www.cjammarketing.com/resources.
Yeah.
Got it? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate your insights into getting business partners and looking at marketing agencies and starting off small and getting some insights, getting some traction, and trying to reduce some of that trial and error and some of those painful mistakes that you can always make when you're hiring partners.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul, and thanks for the insights that you brought on as
Thank
well.
you. Yeah. So, and remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyan, your host, and thank you so much again, B, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.